Parenting difficult children. A good place to start with parenting challenging children is with the three C's: commendation, conversation, and consequences. We need to have a strategy to parenting. We need to have the tools to parent. We can't assume that just because we were able to make a child, that we will also know how to be a good parent to that child. Does that make sense? So we can't assume just because we've made a child that we'll automatically know what it's going to take to be a good parent to the child. Like anything, parenting a child requires skills. Requires skills. What type of skills do we need? We need good leadership skills in order to parent a child, especially when the child is difficult, challenging, right? And so if you're going into parenting without the skills, you're going to have a difficult time and the results may vary, right? So a lot of parenting is a results driven. So we're concerned about how our kid is going to turn out, right? And so you have to analyze your personal situation. You're a different person, so you may have some skills very naturally. You may have picked up skills from your parents, which is where most people learn how to parent, or you may have learned leadership skills from your religion, from work, from other life experiences. And in any of these cases, what we learn about leadership can help us to be able to be good parents. But if we don't have strong leadership skills, then parenting can be especially challenging for us. So today I'm going to teach you skills that you can use when parenting challenging children. Okay. Um, One thing to note about children: if a child behaves with narcissistic behavior, it does not mean that the child is going to be a narcissist. Again, if the child shows that they're showing narcissistic behavior like lying, cheating, manipulating, maybe a lack of taking responsibility, these are not signs that the child is going to be a narcissist. These are signs that a child has emotional immaturity and they need to be guided. Your job as a parent is to guide the child, to facilitate the individuation of the child, which is a fancy way of saying help them to not need you. That's your job as a parent, to help the child to not need you. And you would view as a marker of your success the child's development of independence or their individuation when they grow up, the fact that they don't technically need you anymore. To that, if you have adult children that are over the age of 18, 19, don't be afraid to let go. It is not your job anymore to be a parent. It is not your job anymore to raise them. You are still technically their parent, but it's the way that we call a president who's no longer serving their term president. They continue to have the honorary title, and rightfully so. You continue to carry the honorary title of parent, but it is not your job anymore to raise your 20, 30, 40-year-old daughters or to teach your sons how to behave now that they are above the age of raising. So when they're out of the teens, uh, basically every country around the world, you're not considered to be responsible anymore for their behavior, for what they do. So it's important to disconnect from that feeling or that responsibility in your brain that I am still their parent, so I still have the responsibility or owe them something. No. Your debt is paid. You owed them something when you had them because you brought them in the world against their will. They didn't ask, right? So you brought them in the world. So it's your job. And also, by the way, they're helpless. So it's your job to facilitate for their needs to be met. That was what you owed them when they were children. You needed to make sure their needs were going to be met, make sure they're going to get protected and provided for. But you did that, right? when you look back, you may have some regrets. You may know that you were imperfect. You may feel that you could do better now with what you know. But all of that is a waste of your energy. It's a waste of your energy. Looking back into the past is only good for the lessons we learn. There's data in the past, there's nothing else. We need to focus on the present and the future. So if you made mistakes as a parent, which no doubt you did because you're imperfect, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself and move on. The funny thing about parenting is that the results is not 100% based on you. You would like to take credit for how good your good child was, and you would like to be not held accountable for how terrible your more difficult child has turned out to be. Or some of the things they did that are a little more shameful. But in reality, when children have grown up and they're adults, they are free agents 100%. They are free moral agents. They have free will. So they can become and develop into what they want to become and develop into. For that first 18 to 20 years, it was, you had that large hand of influence. But gradually it became less and less that you were influencing the child until finally they didn't need you anymore. So now that they're an adult, forgive yourself for the past, and now it's time to let go. Nevertheless, some of us have minor children still at home. And even if you don't, learning from what we're talking about tonight is how you parent yourself, because it is no different. I don't talk a lot about parenting because all I talk about is parenting. Again, I don't talk a lot about parenting because all I talk about is parenting. The only thing that we're ever talking about is always parenting. It's just that it's in the frame of reparenting and parenting yourself. All of this trauma healing, all of this therapy is parenting advice. So you don't have to say, hey, tell us about parenting, Roman. That's what I've been talking about this entire time. You don't have to say, I don't have a good father figure. That's what I've been to you this entire time. When you have a therapist, a trauma specialist, they are reparenting you. That is what it is. And when you think about it, you go, oh, yeah, it is kind of what I would do with my parent. Like I go to them, I get advice, I talk to them, they're giving me wisdom, they're dropping experience like a parent. Yes, that's what this process is. We're going through a reparenting process. And it's okay in your adult life to find other figures that can be kind of like surrogate parents. It's not only okay, it's necessary. Because even if we had good parents, it doesn't mean we were able to learn everything from them. There may be some things we still need to learn from other people, right? So understand that you can go back into the 300, 400, I must have something like 500, I don't know how many videos anymore on YouTube. It's like hours upon hours, right, of videos, and all of it is parenting advice. So if you're having a problem with anxiety with your child, you can watch the anxiety video. If you're having a problem with depression with the child, anger with the child, you can watch those videos and just look at it from the standpoint of this is parenting advice. That's what all of this is. Okay. But today we'll talk a little bit more about dealing with actual children, because there are some exceptions with children, like the fact that normally we would cut off someone who's toxic, but when a child acts toxic, we do not cut them off, right? We don't cut our child off because the child is toxic, because they are under an age where they're dependent on us. This is a special case scenario. So when they act toxic, what should we do? Well, you want to have the tools in the toolbox. And the tools that we're going to talk about today are the 3 C's: commendation, conversation, and consequences. Okay. Generally, we want to lean on commendation. That is our strongest teaching tool. Commendation, conversation, and consequences. So commendation is where we commend. That means you build the person up. You say to them, great job. Hey, good job. I really like that. You're telling them positive things about themselves. This will be where you will take something good that they did You will highlight it. You will put the spotlight on the good thing that they did, or the thing that was beneficial or aligns with your values that you're teaching. And you say, that was so, I appreciated how you did that. That was great. And when you do that, as you continue to build up the child, you notice on a child's face, they light up, right? Some children get all bashful, right? When you commend them. And it's a wonderful experience. So it gives some of that joy back to you. How wonderful. So to build a child up, commendation is your strongest tool. You're going to default to it more than the other tools. So you should be commending a child every single day, all throughout the day. Obviously, as they get older, we can chill, right? The teenagers walking around, you don't have to literally be, I appreciate how you both, we can calm down, right? As they get older. But starting from very young, it's a lot of commendation. That's our main teaching tool. Our secondary teaching tool is conversation. When you talk about the concept of discipline, I like to think of discipline as in the ancient Hebrew term to teach. To discipline is to teach. So the idea of conversation is your opportunity to teach. It is also your opportunity to learn and listen. We have to stop making assumptions as parents. Conversation allows you to stop making assumptions. Your child comes to you, Mom, I have something to tell you. What do you have to tell me? Well, I have a boyfriend. What? You have a boyfriend? I told you that by this time you need to be focusing on your studies and all of that. That's not listening. You're not listening. You're reacting emotionally to a piece of information, and all the child hears with all of this and all of this is don't talk to her. That's all your child heard is don't talk to her. Making assumptions is not helpful. Oh, oh, don't worry. You guys just probably just kissing. You're just it's a small thing. Don't make assumptions. That's foolish. If we're wise, we will understand how to listen. This is a part of conversation. Okay, tell me about this. Tell me about what's going on here. You said you have a boyfriend. I appreciate you telling me about this. Go ahead. I would like to know more. Well, we've had sex. What? Oh my gosh, at this age? I've told you, you know how you're going to be looked at in the community? No, not react emotionally. Listen, reserve the reactions. So you're going to use what you've learned. What have we learned here in our trauma healing courses? We've learned pause before responding. We've learned to breathe. And we've learned think. We have to meditate for 5 to 7 seconds. So instead of reacting, we're going to listen. So you're sexually active? Yes. Wow, okay. That's very brave of you to let me know about that. And there's something else, Mom. There's something else? Yeah, I'm pregnant. You're pregnant? What? Right? No. Listen. See, we would have missed all this if we reacted in the first place. We missed all of this. So the child then learned when, as soon as they said, I have a boyfriend, you overreacted. Then they learned, don't talk to her. And they're not going to tell you that they're sexually active, which you need to know. We're talking about minor children here. And they're not going to tell you that they're pregnant, which you need to know. Right? This is important stuff that we're missing because we're the overreactor. Don't be the overreactor. Listen. Likewise, you need the skills of teaching the child. Teaching the child is to help them to think. That is what we're teaching children. We're teaching them to think. In this way, we're raising wise children. We're giving them the opportunity to be wise. So instead of yelling and screaming and telling them what to do, we're going to sit down and explain why and what. Okay, listen. It's very important to me that when your teacher gives you extra credit, that you take the extra credit. And here's why. As you move on in school, blah, 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 such and such, such, so. The importance of your grades to me are so and so, such and such, such and such. Talk. teach. It's very important that you don't lie to me, right? That's conversation. You're going to sit down, you're going to listen, you're going to ask questions, and then you're going to teach calmly. No louder than how I'm talking here. It should be even quieter than that. It's quiet. They should be having to lean in to hear you. That's how you know you're at the right level where they're leaned in like that. That means you got things down here. That's how you keep the energy calm. We learn better when the energy is calm. We learn better when the energy is calm. Here's the thing, you guys were all kids. We don't need too much yelling. We don't need too much yelling. Instead of yelling across the house, across the room, across the living room, have them come over, have them sit down so you can speak very quietly, very peaceful. And believe me, just having your parent lecture you and talk to you and have a tough conversation with you is punishment enough for most children. So you won't even have to go to consequences when you're very good at commendation and conversation. But for the sake of understanding, it is a tool in your toolbox. Consequences is your least used tool, and it means different things in different families. Some families feel that two smacks to the butt on a little child, it's not going to harm the child. It's just getting their attention, letting them know right here, right now, they cross the boundary. You've given them the warning, and bam. In your family, it may not be that way. Maybe you feel that any type of hitting the child wouldn't be appropriate. So for you, you may use timeouts, or you might use taking away privileges. So whatever you're using, those are examples of consequences, okay? So we always default to the 3 C's in our toolbox when we're dealing with difficulties. So what kind of difficulties come up that you find difficult in parenting? Let's take, for instance, temper tantrums, which is usually happening when they're very young. And if we deal with it correctly, then we can stop that from happening when they get older, which apparently didn't happen for our narcissists, right? So temper tantrums, throwing fits, crying when they don't get their way. How can we handle that using the 3 C's? Well, this isn't a time to commend if they're doing a temper tantrum. So if they're very young, conversation might not be possible, right? Because they're having a whole emotional meltdown and they're screaming. In this case, it may be best to ignore the behavior to the extent possible, so you can walk away and let them do their thing. The reason why we're ignoring the behavior, not the child, we're ignoring the behavior, right? We still speak to the child. We ignore the behavior. We're showing it no energy so that they learn, oh, I can't emotionally manipulate this person. You see, when you show, oh my God, you're having it, please come on, Johnny, I'm Johnny. You're doing all that. They're like, all right, this is working. I want to control the scene right now, and I'm sure going to try. So at 2 years old, they start trying to control the scene. So it's very important for you to help them recognize they cannot control you. They cannot control your reactions. They cannot manipulate your emotions. That's your job as a parent to establish that. And so ignoring the behavior can be one of your strongest tools in a situation like a temper tantrum. Sometimes that's just not possible, and then you'll have to use a sharp consequence for the temper tantrum. Okay. So it's like, hey, no, that's not appropriate. And bam, they're getting a sharp consequence for that temper tantrum. It is your job. It is your job to guide the child. Responding and reacting in the moment because you're embarrassed because they're doing the temper tantrum, or you're just stressed with life, is not good parenting. This is an opportunity. It's a learning experience. They have to learn through doing this. They might have to try this a couple times. They have to learn through doing this that A, it either gets ignored or it gets a sharp consequence. That needs to happen 100% of the time, consistently. If I ever do a temper tantrum, it either gets ignored or it gets a sharp consequence. They're going to learn very quickly. I don't like doing temper tantrums. It's a lot of work anyway. I'm good. I don't need to do the temper tantrums. And then we want to teach the children how to handle their emotions. This is conversation. You're going to sit the child down and teach them how to handle their emotions. When you feel big emotions, when you feel upset, I want you to say, I feel really upset right now, mommy. Can you say that? Go ahead and practice right now. Okay, now let's do a pretend example. Now, let's say you ask me for something in the grocery store and I say no. Now, show me how you'll use your words to explain your emotions. And you actually practice the scenario with them. That's skilled conversation. What about lying? So the child gets a little bit older and they start telling lies, right? It's dishonesty. They're trying to avoid consequences or they're trying to gain approval. Anytime egregious lies are caught, it should be met with conversation. Anytime egregious lies are caught, it should be met with conversation, which means we're going to sit them down. Hey, I asked you this and you told me this. When you did this, and now we're going to explain what it was, why it was a lie, why that's wrong, and then teach them how we want them to handle it in the future. That was a lie because of this and this. The reason it's wrong is because of this and that and that. Here's the problems it can cause for people or me or in the future. Here's how it makes people feel. Here's the problems it can cause for you. And then finally, here's how I want you to handle it instead. When you feel afraid, and you don't want to give information, here's how I want you to handle it instead. It's met with a conversation again and again and again, every time you catch them in a lie. The 3 C's are commendation, conversation, and consequences. What about when they're disrespectful? So disrespect, talking back, showing lack of respect for authority, blatant or flagrant disrespect should not be tolerated. We want to nip that in the bud very early on. See how firm I'm being right now? We do not tolerate disrespect. We do not tolerate disrespect. Any disrespect needs to be immediately met with conversation or consequence. Cannot tolerate disrespect. Why? Because you have a household to run. You can't run your household if your children are disrespecting you. So disrespect cannot be tolerated. Okay? Immediate conversation where we're going to sit down, we're going to talk this whole thing out. You're going to listen, why, what, you're going to explain what was wrong about it, why it's wrong. Here's how I want you to handle it in the future. Or when necessary, it's consequences. 100% of the time that they're disrespectful, they should see, this gets me nowhere. Okay? What about if they're aggressive? They're hitting, they're pushing, they're being physically harmful to others. They have violent behavior. All violent behavior should be met with conversation. Violent behavior needs to be met with conversation. This is a warning sign that something is seriously wrong with the child. So we need to sit down and we need to figure it out. Hey, talk to me. What's going on? Why are you acting out? Why are you being violent? Let them explain. Listen to them. Hear them out. Explain why it's wrong. Why is it dangerous? What's the problem with it? Why you don't like it? How it makes other people feel. That's a big one. Empathy is a very big one that has to be taught. How does this make other people feel? Right? And finally, here's how I want you to respond in the future. Here's a different way to handle your emotions when you want to be violent. What about withdrawal? If the kid is ignoring you, the parents, it's becoming socially isolated. Some isolation can be tolerated, right? Maybe they're just like to play alone, and that can be okay. Sometimes we can ignore it and it will go away, right? We can give them a little space, but generally, if it seems unhealthy and you're concerned about the way that they're isolating or ignoring, it needs to be met with consistent conversation, which means we need to sit down. We need to investigate. What's going on here? What's going on? Ask questions, listen, don't react. And then show them how you would like them to handle their feelings. If you don't like them handling their feelings that way, you teach them the right way to handle your feelings. When you're feeling, now that they explained, oh, it's because I was upset, or it's because I felt scared, right? You can find out some big things if you close this and open this. This is how we find out that somebody is preying on our children by closing this with all the assumptions and opening this. Why are you feeling that way? Why would you think that? All right? Ask questions. Draw the child out so that you can understand their mind. When you don't react with anger, they feel safe to talk to you. When you react with anger, they will not speak to you. Why would they talk to you? You're teaching them that you're not a safe person to talk to. Very simple. What about outright defiance? They openly refuse to follow your rules or instructions. You give them a reasonable command. Can you pick up your shoes out of the middle of the hallway, please? No. How do we handle outright defiance? Outright defiance needs to be immediately met with swift consequences. We need to handle outright defiance with swift consequences. Why? Why do we got to be so harsh on outright defiance? Because you have a household to run. You wouldn't be able to run a household when your children are being defiant. They can't learn in a state of defiance. So it needs to be met with 100% of the time. If we're not having a conversation because maybe I thought there's something I just didn't understand here, then it's going to be met with swift consequences. We need to be consistent and repetitious. Consistent and repetitious. That's how children learn. What about cheating? They're engaging in dishonest behavior in school or in games. How should we handle cheating? We handle cheating with conversation. Every single time we find out they cheated, sit down and we're talking about it again. Hey, what's going on? Well, here's what you did wrong. Let me explain to you why that's cheating. Let me explain to you what the problem with cheating is. Here's the issues, right? Same thing. You're going through what it is, why it's a problem, what it's going to lead for in the future. If they don't stop now, and then here's how you handle it. Next time you really want to win, here's how you handle it. Show them the behavior that they should be engaging in instead. If your child's overreacting, let's say they tend to overreact, they have exaggerated reactions over minor issues, which causes disruptions. Overreacting should be met with conversation. These are opportunities to teach the child. Don't be surprised that a child is emotionally dysregulated. This is an opportunity to teach them and to learn, because you don't know why they're overreacting. Perhaps you need to listen and ask questions. You have to investigate what's going on with the child. Why are they overreacting? Typically, these signs, these misbehaviors are signs that there's an issue. There's deeper issues that you need to dig into. Don't shy away from conversations. Don't shy away from confrontations with your children. It's too important. It's too important. And what about distraction? The child has difficulty focusing, the difficulty completing tasks. And it leads to frustration. How do we handle distraction? Distraction should be met with patience. We need to be patient when our children are distracted. We need to use repetition. Didn't I tell you that you're supposed to do this? Aren't you supposed to be working on this right now? Aren't you supposed to be working on this right now? 10 minutes later, aren't you supposed to be working on this right now? Be patient. No need to yell or get excited, because what is that going to do? Put him in a state of anxiety and more emotional dysregulation. There's no need for that. His brain is developing. Of course, he's going to be distracted. He's still a developing child. Just keep bringing him back to the task at hand. Sometimes you got to take breaks, right? We need to have balance. So show reasonableness. Okay, look, we've been at this for about a half hour. Let's take a break. Let's go play. And then let's come back to our task at hand. All right. Very good. So hopefully these scenarios have helped you to find your balance in being able to parent difficult children. You should not regard the behavior of the child as a sign that it's going to be a narcissist, even if the child has a narcissistic parent that you're co-parenting or parallel parenting with. Children are developing. It is not already just decided what they will be when they grow up. They're in their developmental stage. So you need to work with them, and guide the development to the degree possible. If you do everything right, does that guarantee that your child will not become an evil, psychopathic, sociopathic narcissist? Please understand, to a degree, you have to detach from the outcome. You don't know what they're going to come out to turn out to be because people have free will. He could still decide, or she could still decide, to become an evil villain later. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's because of you. My parents did a lot of things right. One of the things they did really well is they commended me when I was a child. I remember my grandmother saying to me, "You smart as a whip." She was from the Bronx, New York. You smart as a whip. You could be anything you want to be one day. You could be the president. If you want to be the president, you could be the president. Right? That made me feel so good. To be honest, she may have said that several times, but I just remember one particular time she said it. So she may have only said it that one time, but I let it go straight to my head. and and it's great. You can ride. I was able to ride that fluffy ego to actually becoming someone that other people started saying was also a smart person. So commend the children. The commendation is your main tool. So when you see them doing it right, after you've told them, after you've instructed them, when you see the correct behavior, has to be a lot of commendation for that. That is your main tool. Hey, I like how you handled that. I liked how you use your words. I appreciate that. Commendation is the main tool that is used to instruct and mold your children. But there is no guarantee of what they will become. I chose to become what I became. I chose to be an empathic healer, right? But I could have chosen to be a supervillain, you know. And yeah, some genetic makeup plays into it. I just have too much empathy to do that, sure. But the free will is still there, right? We all can choose what we become. So don't take it so personally, what your child decides, whether they're talking to you or not talking to you, or they're doing well or not doing well. It's not all about you. They're their own human being. So we need to recognize that.